Welcome to the Soccer Curious podcast, The Beautiful Game Explained. My name is Brian Peter Falk. This is an emergency episode that I'm recording a few hours before the U.S. takes the field in Seattle for its round of 16 match against Belgium. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to explain the Balogun red card controversy. Okay, so here's what happened. So last Wednesday, July 1st, the U.S. played its round of 32 match against Bosnia-Herzegovina. Around the 60th minute, Balogun, our number one striker who scored 3 goals so far in the World Cup, and a center back named Tariq Moremovic came together on the field and both fell over. The referee, who's a Brazilian named Rafael Klaus, doesn't call a foul. So there's been a lot of controversy over why didn't he call a foul, given what was seen later on the video assistant referee known as VAR. But I'm going to explain, as someone who's been a referee, the refereeing process in that moment. So I think what Rafael Klaus is seeing is that Moremovic is trying to do something called drawing contact. So at that moment, that player, the Bosnian player, is about to get on the ball, but he's heading right toward the sideline, which we call the touch line in soccer. To his left is another U.S. player, Malik Tillman, who's set to come in and get in front of him, which is something in soccer we call closing down. So he's got Balogun on his back, and he's got Malik Tillman to his left, and he's got the touch line right in front of him. So in that case, what the player is trying to do, slow down a little bit, maybe stick his butt out a little bit, and trying to draw contact with Balogun, at which point he will fall over. If you've been watching the World Cup, you've seen this. He will throw his arms in the air and dramatically simulate that he has been fouled and will normally get that foul. Okay, so that's what he's trying to do. At that moment, Balogun and Moremovic are almost shoulder to shoulder. In the world of refereeing, when two shoulders come together and meet, and if somebody falls down, that's generally not given as a foul. So what the referee, Rafael Klaus, sees is two guys sort of coming together, Moremovic slowing down to try to draw the foul. They're 60 minutes into the game. This has already happened repeatedly, this idea of drawing contact. Both sides are doing it. It's not just a Bosnian thing. The U.S. is also doing it, shielding from the ball, feeling for the contact, falling down. So the referee sees these two players come together, a tangling of legs, okay, and they both fall down. And what does Moremovic do? But of course, he grabs his leg and writhes around and yells. But generally speaking, that's just something that players do to try to sell the foul. So Rafael Klaus does not call a foul in that moment. So here's what happens. The video assistant referee, there's 3 referees looking at a big bank of monitors up somewhere in the top of the stadium. They see it differently. They think maybe a foul has occurred, and they ask Rafael Klaus, who is the head referee, whose final decision is what it will be, to go look at it. So that's when Rafael Klaus blows his whistle, makes this symbol, the symbol of a screen, and then says he's going to go look at it. So when that happens, there are a couple of things you got to understand. Psychologically speaking, when a referee is told, we want you to review either the call or the non-call in this case, psychologically, the referee is already thinking, oh, I may have made a mistake. So there is a predisposition, we've talked about this on past episodes, there is a predisposition to sort of think, I've already got to change something. I didn't do this correctly. So that's what Klaus is probably playing in his brain as he's jogging over to look at the monitor. Okay, so part of this controversy is because of what happens next. So Klaus goes and looks at the VAR. Like in other sports, like in basketball, when they're looking at whether or not something was a technical foul or who touched a ball out of bounds, when they're replaying those incidents, we, the public, are seeing them too. We are seeing the same thing the referee is seeing. That's the same thing in soccer. So whatever Klaus is seeing, we at home are seeing it too. So I was a little surprised to see that Klaus was looking both at slow-mos and stills of the coming together between Balogun and Moremovic. Okay, and that's important because normally the VAR playback rules are split into 2 buckets. There are things that you are allowed to look at in slow-mo and with stills, and then things you are only allowed to really look at normal speed. So if you're trying to decide where a foul occurred or whether or not there was a handball, things like that, you are allowed to use slow-mo and you're allowed to use stills. But for judging the severity of physical contact, like did somebody step on somebody's ankle and how hard did they step, the referee is instructed by FIFA that you're only really supposed to look at normal speed. And the reason seems pretty obvious, which is when you see two players come together in normal speed, that's a small amount of time. When you see that in slow-mo, that's a much greater amount of time. And again, psychologically, it can make it seem like it's far worse than it actually is, okay? Slow motion replays, they sort of naturally distort a physical challenge like that. So they can make sort of an accidental collision look far more severe. So given the fact that we saw what the referee saw, and given the fact that Klaus clearly on the VAR looked at slow-mos and then stills, and there's a very important still that's now been in the media of what looks like Balogun basically standing on top of Marinovic's ankle, and the ankle is twisting in a really unnatural and grotesque way that makes you go, oh God, that's bad, could have broken his ankle. It was no surprise that Klaus then went back onto the field, again indicated, they turned on the PA system, and he pulls out his red card and announces that Balogun is out of the game. Okay, so generally when you're out of the game in FIFA, for those who didn't know, everyone was like, well, we'll just appeal. There is no appeals process in FIFA. When you are given a red card, you are up for at least a 1-game suspension, and if it's very severe, it can be more than 1 game. Okay, we're going to get to the example of that later. So anyway, so now here's some backstory between Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino, who is the head of FIFA, who seems to run it like it's his own kind of dictatorship. So in December of last year, Gianni Infantino gave Donald Trump in the White House this ridiculous FIFA Peace Prize, which was a completely pulled out of nowhere. It was the inaugural one, had never been done before. Trump had been trying to get nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. He did not get that. So now Gianni came to the rescue with this other Peace Prize, which was widely derided as a joke and an obvious ploy to curry favor with the president. Then in the ensuing months, as the World Cup was approaching, Donald Trump was threatening many cities, many of which have liberal mayors, that games were going to be taken away from them, and FIFA more or less would issue these sort of bland press releases with general language, not really in support of those mayors or in support of those cities, and it was tantamount to basically saying nothing. Then FIFA announced that Trump is going to be handing out the World Cup trophy to the winner, clearly again currying favor with Trump. So then, after the July 1st game and Balogun's suspension, New York Times and others report that Trump literally picked up the phone, called Gianni Infantino, and asked him, or told him, to review the red card suspension. Meanwhile, in the White House, they got some lawyers together, who apparently are not White House lawyers, independent attorneys, to put together a memo that was challenging the decision. And their primary reasoning for challenging the decision was using the VAR rules that I just described. Basically saying the VAR team and the field referee were in error by considering the slow motion evidence of the foul. So FIFA then on Sunday, so that's yesterday, July 5th, invoked Article 27, basically saying they have the right to suspend a red card suspension. They can say, yes, there will be a red card suspension, but we're not going to do it now. We're going to do it at another time. So this was a huge bombshell, okay, when they released this statement. Their statement read in part, in line with Article 27 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code, the implementation of the match suspension is suspended for a probationary period of 1 year. So what is Article 27? So it has 4 parts. I'm not going to read all of them, but basically it is a catch-all get out of jail free card that FIFA has in its laws that basically says you can suspend the implementation of a disciplinary measure. The only case in which you cannot suspend a disciplinary measure is if it is related to match manipulation. So if you're a player and you do something to get a red card so your team loses because you've bet money on the other team, okay, so that's a disciplinary measure and you can't have a suspension delayed. But in this case, they could delay a suspension. So there has been a lot of talk about there are prior cases of this. One was in the 1960s, but there is a much more recent example, which is in this World Cup. In the lead up to the World Cup, Portugal played the Republic of Ireland in a game. Cristiano Ronaldo, who's Portugal's big star and a global soccer superstar, got a red card in that game. The foul was so violent and egregious, he wasn't given a 1-game ban. He was given a 3-game suspension for the foul. Those 3 games would have leaked into the actual playing of the World Cup. So, you know what I'm about to tell you about this, right? Big star, biggest stage in global football. FIFA suspended Cristiano Ronaldo's suspension until after the World Cup is over so that he could play in the games because, listen, advertisers, fans want to see Ronaldo play. So what does this all mean? Well, Belgium is pissed, as you would imagine. And think about for a second, if you're a U.S. fan, if it were the other way around. That Jeremy Doku, one of Belgium's biggest stars, had got suspended for a red card, and then suddenly they announced, poof, that's gone, and Doku's playing. The U.S. would also be pissed. UEFA, which is the confederation in Europe under which Belgium plays, has also released a statement saying they want an investigation, they think this is all terrible and wrong, and it shouldn't be this way. This has now become the biggest and absolutely the worst story of this World Cup because it tilts toward graft and corruption and double dealing and things for which both FIFA and the Trump administration, I'm sorry to tell you, are famous for. So in a way that where you feel like FIFA can't really be tarnished any further since it's an organization that's almost built out of tarnish. Yes, it's actually gotten blacker. FIFA now looks worse than it has ever looked. And frankly, if you're a USMNT fan like I am, you do have to wince a little bit. Do I think it should have been a red card? No, I do not, because I think if you review that in real time, it looks like a foul, but it doesn't look anywhere as egregious as a red card, possibly a yellow. But getting 2 divisive figures together is a terrible look. Having them come to a decision that favors one of them is even worse and could add an unfortunate asterisk to a win today for the U.S. should that win happen. All right, that's what happened in the Fowler and Balogun red card controversy here on the Soccer Curious podcast. The beautiful game explained.